Well, we'll just wait one more minute here. Not looking good overall, though, right? I mean, XBI, we can see that we're just touching the bottom of that downtrend channel right there. Same thing with Pfizer. So, not touching any of those guys today, but this is obviously one too. You can see it's not as clean on the SPY, but 1, 2, 3. You know, we're sitting there. Same thing. You probably find something. Yeah, probably here. You can see it coming down for the Qs. So, not freaking out. Just all according to plan. Right. All right, let's get into it. I'm going to start off with ARDX, I think, this morning. I thought that one would be an interesting one to take a look at, seeing that we're NVIV, but I'm going to go with ARDX first. Been waiting a long time for this one to come back around. It was a good trade years ago. I think it was... But you know what's interesting is I just kind of disregarded it, yeah, because it was a good trade, like, for me, 2016, 17, 18. So, I have to go back to, I gotta go back to months here, guys. What am I looking at here? Why are we so zoomed in here, TrendSpider? Alright, let's try that again. Oh my gosh. Is it my computer? No more data. So something's going on with TrendSpider. Not good. I'll go back to daily. But I wanted to point it out because these guys are starting to really dip into commercialization. They've obviously had some wins here, right? Got some catalysts that bumped it up, but we're getting an interest. We're coming into some interesting levels here. Right, so you have a little bit here. There's some historical prior, and then you have something down here. So you have a couple spots where you can take a nibble and you can add to it. When I did a really quick, like, what's a decent price for it fundamentally, you know, my value would be around $5, kind of where I would really consider it. On a technical side, you're probably really waiting for like about $4.50, $5, or $4.50, $3.50, $4.50, $4 area. If we're looking at 200-day EMA, notice that's where she tagged yesterday, or the day before, I'm sorry. So let's see if we can find a nice pivot low here. What was our low here? Not that. So they had good bullish divergence here. That's probably the lowest right there. Right? I think it's my computer today. I might have too many things running. Yeah, that's it. It's down here somewhere. That's it right there. Right, you can start to see that's the influence there. Boom, boom, boom. Now, coming up off the bottom. I can see that's what. So that's the start right there. There's the trend, and then there's the anchored VWAP. So that's where we. And then she broke it there. You can see the line. It probably comes from way up here, but let's just do from here, right? So there's one that she broke. Come out, little retest, move sideways. another one. Probably, yeah, it's not as clean, but you can see that one, boom, 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 hits there. So those are the breaks. That's the change, right? So you could tell at this point when she starts doing that pretty quickly, you know the selling algos are starting to ease off, pull back, right? And then they allowed the sucker to go. So that's your long term that they set up. Does that come into it yet? I don't think so. So where would we? That's probably a good spot. Maybe in a few months we can really, yeah, around July 4th would we go for? No, August we'd be looking for something there. Maybe for if the earnings is not as strong as the market wants. Sorry. Is there another acceleration that we can pay attention to? Yeah, there's something going on there. Oh, so here's some volume. What's the low there? 112? Pretty close. Yeah, so she tagged right in the anchored VWAP there, and then she popped. You can see it right there, right? So that's where she tagged couple days in a row. Boom, boom, boom. Coming in on it, and then here's another acceleration right there. So that's the closest thing we have. Anything here? So that's probably, yeah, that's probably the next one because that one's broken. So this acceleration here up to the upside is broken already. So the next gap below, if it doesn't hold here, the next gap below is really waiting for it to come in to touch around 5 in July. I know that's a long ways away, but that's kind of where we can, I'm not saying it's overvalued right now, but if you're looking for a good spot, maybe coming in around 5, which is if it breaks below this, comes in. If it really pops down, I mean, maybe she does sell off the 450. So so you could say around $6 could be your threshold right now. Bring it down to about 450, and then that will improve with the trend, and obviously better improved sales as they move along. They don't have greats. I mean, the forecasts aren't great, but these guys are just digging in. So you gotta let I guess the premium wear off that, we got an approved drug and it's a bajillion-dollar market opportunity. And then the sales are like, kind of basic. I wouldn't say disappointing, but realistic. And then all that premium just starts to come off because there's the idea like, oh, the shorts have to cover. And then there's the idea of like, oh, this thing's going to get bought out. If it's not getting bought out, all the shine of needing to be in it now kind of goes. Shorts, settle back in. Market makers are not willing to drive it up to $30 a share. So, there's all the pressures of just getting the cycle back in, bringing it back down. So, we'll wait. But something to keep an eye on because the earnings is coming up in like 2 or 3 weeks. And like I said, these guys are just getting going. So, it could be a surprise. But let's look for a nice opportunity to grab something I think there's a lot upside to the actual ticker. The company has some stuff going on, so I mean, she could defend it right here, and it would be a good spot to defend it, but we would still have to wait. I'm not willing to buy it above this anchored VWAP, so it'd have to bounce and basically accumulate maybe for a month or two, and then if the anchored VWAP comes down, 200-day EMA, and they kind of just squeeze it, so this is pressuring down, this is pressuring up. Maybe there's another anchored view. Something. What can we have here? Oh, hello. Look at that. I missed it. So yeah, this could be a spot where you can see it 1-2 comes off this sucker. She nailed it already. So yeah, if you're really looking to get in, maybe she comes down and hits. You look for a spot along this line on the way up. That could be your spot right there. Let's see. If I can spell today. We're going to look for a touch, or are we going to look for a bounce? We're going to look for a touch. After that, we got to look at Vive real quick, just for the sake of... Where you at, Vive? Oh, now we're falling off here. Opening bell's hurting you. Well, I was going to point out that this was actually starting to look like a good spot, but not that we're, a few dollars in, but I thought the $200 area was going to be a decent psychological spot for a reversal. But we can see this is a strong angle of attack. Plus you have, I think, from the top you got, there's that. So that's the strong sucker from the top. So I guess it's not steep, but obviously from here down it's pretty steep. So you have this coming down to here, and you have the third acceleration. So if we're looking for a spot for it to bounce, we'd probably want to see maybe it comes down, bounces off this downtrend ray, and then really you see a nice little hammer up. Good volume step in. But Halo. Who was the last one that I want to look at today? Oh, EVH or ELV. Looks even better today, huh, guys? A little bit off the top. So anybody, I mean, I'm looking at CBS here. So EVA, the point was ELV, UNH looking great. Now CBS is getting a little bit of a bounce here because obviously they're, they have their insurance segment there in the business. That's why my favorite way to play is CVS. It's always going to be CVS, even though they're not the best compared to ELV or UNH, or basically all the other bigger names. But it's like, I could still play those trades, but there's always the hedge, or maybe not the hedge. Yeah, I guess a hedge could be said. It's not really technically a hedge, but you know what I'm saying. It's just the fact that there's also the addition, the fact that CVS is, a retail, and a world without CVS is the end of the world. So. She's bouncing up a little bit. I thought we were going to have a more positive reaction to it, but this is essentially what I wrote in the article, which is don't be surprised if they give you, like, hey, things are still doing well, but the algos are still just going to read that headline. They're the headline numbers, it's still technically a year-over-year decrease in EPS. Why? Well, because they bought some things. These guys acquire other companies, so they take a little bit of a hit. But, hey, organic growth, pretty good. Now, the year-over-year growth for Abbott, not great. Why? Because they're still fading COVID revenues. And this is what I'm talking about. You have the Abbotts, you have the Pfizers, right? All these companies that are essentially going to be reporting year-over-year declines still, despite being out of the pandemic now for a decent amount of time. But it's still out there. It's still, those things still need to be used. So, it's not like it just fell off a cliff the moment it was over and done with, and now we've kind of we've done the hangover part of it. No, this is lingering. But it's lingering to what extent? It's funny is that if you ask some people, or I guess you'd say if you read some analysts and some of these projections of, it's a bit of a disappointment for all the COVID revenues because it's really falling off. But then there's some that are saying like, hey, it's actually doing better than we thought it was doing. Like some of the need for the antivirals and the testing is still elevated a little higher than we thought it was going to be. I think the vaccines are the ones that are kind of taking a big hit because it just seems like no one's even talking about getting boosters anymore. So that being said, it's probably going to be a really murky, depending on which COVID play still exists. How much percentage of are they outperforming their COVID, and at what point does that really go away, and then that hurts that company? But for Pfizer, it's been abrupt because they had essentially I'm not going to say the best because I think we all know it wasn't really the clinically, but commercially, and then obviously with government contracts, that was essentially the lead vaccine, and they also had ultimately the lead antiviral. So they had that exposure, and their international contracts are still holding up, but some of them are really falling apart now too, or just canceled essentially. So let's take a look at Pfizer actually. Am I missing it? So she's sitting here. What was this? Maybe I have to do an update on this. What a mess. Anyway, I gotta get going. 10 minutes into the bell. If anybody has any tickers they want me to take a look at, let me know. I'll try to get to it. Other than that,